right, a very warm welcome to the program today, and of course, as usual, it is still that particular theme that we're having on the program titled Ububarihe. That's the hashtag for this whole week. I made a promise, and of course, that is what we are doing right here in the program. In case you're wondering what the name of the program is, it is One on One, and my name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. My guest in studio today is none other than the former Justice Minister, Mr. Tharcisse Karugarama. Welcome to One on One, sir.
Thank you so much.
And I must say, many thanks for accepting to come on the program.
My pleasure.
Very good. So we are here to spend approximately 30 minutes to talk about your journey to where you are today. Many people are used to seeing you on their TV screens, hearing you on their radios, or meeting you in your office as the Justice Minister. And today they're wondering where you went to. We'll talk about that. But before we get to that, let's look at your role in the streamlining of the judicial system in the country. Today, if you sit back from your chair, wherever you are today, what do you see? Are you happy with the progress? Are you happy with your contribution in the justice system in the country?
I would say on my part that I did my best to do what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
My best, of course, is probably not the best for everybody.
Mm.
I can't have satisfied everybody. Maybe I didn't even satisfy myself, but I did my best to do what I was supposed to do.
Mm.
And that was over a long period, because I was Minister for Justice and Attorney General for just about 7.5 years, nearly 8 years.
Almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. I was actually about 3-4 months shy of 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, I had been the chairman of the National Law Reform Commission. I had been a Deputy Chief Justice in charge of court administration. I had been the President of the High Court. I had been a Prosecutor General for the Northern Circuit when we still had circuits. And so I have been in the justice sector
for a very long time.
For a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Stretches from 96 through 2013.
Mm.
So in the process, therefore, I think I made some contribution. I made some failures here and there. On the whole, I think I did my best. But to be up to the people I was serving, up to the nation, to judge me for whatever I did.
For whatever you did.
I can't judge myself.
But if you look at the roles that you were given, in all these stages that you talk about, aren't there those that you feel like, or those things that you feel like, when I was appointed, these are some of the things I wanted to achieve, that you can today comfortably point and say, it was me that made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 changes that you see today? Are there those kind of things that you can talk about today?
Yes, there are quite many, but I would hasten to add that, you see, this wouldn't have been me. I was part of the process. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the exclusive person that did it. I was part and parcel of the team that made it possible. Mm-hmm. But you can look at a number of issues, like when I was presiding over the law reform. Mm. This was a judiciary that had gone down so badly. This is a judiciary where we had no workers. This was a judiciary that was highly corrupt. This was a judiciary where the laws had not been touched at all for a very, very long time. This was a judiciary where more than 70%, 80% of the practitioners, the judges, the prosecutors were not lawyers. They were laymen, but they were filling our courts, in the courts of appeal, in the National Prosecution Services. There were people that had never trained in law, but they were running the system. And the transformation of the judiciary was so important, to be able to get graduates, people who have studied law, to practice law, to be appointed judges, to be appointed prosecutors, and to delink the Ministry of Justice to be a policy ministry and separate completely from the judiciary and from the prosecution services was a very, very big transformation. Again, to detach the prison services, the correctional services, from the Justice Ministry into the Ministry of Interior, where they fit most, was another major achievement. You can look at the abolition of the death penalty. You can look at the running of the gacaca system that judged nearly 2 million cases involving more than about 1.2 million people. These are all landmarks. You can look at the revision of the Criminal Procedure Code, the introduction of the law of evidence. You can look at the whole overhaul of the judicial and the prosecutor function, the separation, where the judicial has its own budget, where it has administrative and financial autonomy, where the National Prosecuting Authority has both administrative and financial autonomy. All these were major changes because in the past they were all fused into the Ministry of Justice. And so if you look at the time, everybody was hesitant about the justice apparatus in the country. Today, the world and the citizens here have confidence in their judicial system. There are still, of course, problems. Human beings or the world is about problems and problem solving. But on the whole, there is more trust
in the judicial system than it was before.
And so all these, I can say, made a contribution. But I didn't do it. It was done as part of the system.
As part of the system.
Yes.
But in some cases, you being the top person up there.
I had a role to play.
To play that.
In juxtaposition with other players.
Voila. Now, talking of those achievements in the way you line them out and probably comfortably say that, at least I played this particular role in making us get to where we are or where we are today. But of course, someone might also wonder, are there some of those things that you did that today you sit back and you say, these were very unpopular decisions that I made, that if I got another chance, I would make them different or I would do them differently? What are those things?
It's very difficult to judge oneself. Today, I see that whatever we did, because it was done as a collective effort, people are adding on, not subtracting. So people are improving on what was on the ground. They're not removing anything at all. They're adding on what has already been done. They're consolidating the achievements. They're adding on more value to what already exists because the foundation was laid. The judicial independence, the prosecutorial function, the law of the family, the rights of children, our accession to all UN conventions at the UN, at the African Union, our participation in the East African community, all these services, the laws that govern all these were done in this period. So
you have nothing that you feel like, probably in my contribution, I erred. I made a mistake on this particular issue that sort of I would not do if today I had a chance to sit in that seat again.
I can't think of one where I would go back and I would only improve. Because you see, whenever you make a system, even with the best of intentions, you always forget something. You always miss out something. You always could have done it better. But to say that this was wrong and therefore you have to reset it and scrap it off, I don't see it. If it had been there, I think by now it would have been apparent. It would have been removed. But on the contrary, what's happening is people are building on that, improving on what exists. They're not scrapping off anything that I know of.
All right.
But if there is something, I'd be happy to have a debate on it and see what
to do on that. Yes. But interestingly, it is very hard to talk about certain things, certain events in your time, because there are allegations that during your time you oversaw a spending of close to 163 million Rwandan francs with expatriates, and of course some even accused you of misappropriation of funds and misuse of power. I mean, when you were the Minister of Justice. Looking at this kind of accusations, and you say that there's nothing that I would do differently, what then can you say about that?
It's very interesting because, first of all, I think people who talk about it talk in total, absolute ignorance of the facts. First, it's not only me. There's no minister at all that has a role in the procurement. Nothing at all. So it's not possible, therefore, that I could have misappropriated funds for expatriates. It can't be. It's not possible because how? The minister has no role in procurement. But if you want me to make a little explanation, we had what we called a crisis of capacity. We needed some experts. And so we contacted our friends in Europe and the US. Can you look for us experts in contract drawing, in preparing government contracts, to ensure that when the government of Rwanda makes contracts, they are solid. They're not taken to court. And so we cast a net. So eventually people set up interviews in the US. So they got us some lawyers, very high quality lawyers. Today, they're in top positions all over the world. They served here for a very short time. So these people came here. They did interviews, hundreds of people, and a few were selected. So when they came here, we had negotiated. What are we going to pay if they come?
If they come in, yes.
What shall we pay them? And so I agreed as the Attorney General, as the Minister for Justice. I negotiated the terms. So what were the terms to be paid? For all of them, in total, 1 vehicle for all of them. Whereas expatriates, usually each of them has a vehicle.
All of their own, yes.
But we negotiated that they would all stay in one house, all of them in one house, so we gave the house value.
Who? When you say we, was it
I was
you?
negotiating with the people here to tell them that if you accept to come in Rwanda,
these are the things we would give you.
These are the things that would be possible.
But is that procurement's work?
No, because the procurement is done later.
Okay.
These were the principles.
Okay.
That go and look for people. When you look for people, we shall not give them a house that exceeds $2,000. If you get a neighborhood that is one house for 8 people, $2,000. All right? I was then setting the targets.
Okay.
That is here. So you look for people elsewhere, they should come in as volunteers. So government of Rwanda will not pay them salaries. But we are prepared, we would be prepared to give them one house not exceeding $2,000 for all the 8. We would give them one car for all the 8.
All of them for movement, yes,
for
circulation, yes.
We would give them, I think, some 20,000 for communication. We would give them a security guard for about 20,000. So when they talk about that money, they're talking the total of all these 8 that we negotiate. So when they came, therefore, the procurement then went into place to look for the house, all right?
The car?
The car. So all these were being done by the fellows that were responsible for procurement. What we negotiated was general direction, and that was within my competence as Attorney General. Not to look for the house, not to look for transport, nothing except to negotiate the general overview that if you recruit them, tell them so they don't come to Rwanda
with high expectations
high
than these ones that we have set.
Because they are coming as volunteers.
Yes.
They're helping us. We call them borrowed talent. We are borrowing them for a short time to create our own capacity here. As soon as that is done, they should go back. So they should come in as volunteers. But even volunteers have to leave. So you give them something that makes them stay here. So one house for 8, one car for 8, some little money for transport, security guard, and that's it. So the procurement people did that. So when they are talking about misappropriation of that money, they're talking of that whole package for 2 years. So all of them.
So what happened then? Where then did they come up with this 163 million Rwandan francs?
Those are criminals at large, I would call them. People that like to make allegations, or people that are totally ignorant of what goes on. So
But
that's
then
what happened.
those who say that where there is smoke, there is fire then, I mean, when someone says 163 million, it's not little money, I mean.
Sure, but I've told you what it means. You're talking of expatriates, 8 of them. You're talking about the car, the fuel they use. You're talking of the house they live in. You're talking of 8 people for 2 years, expatriates. So that was a picture. The people who did it are people that make allegations, and those you can't stop. You can't stop evildoers from doing their evil, their trade. You can't say that when you're working, you're not stepping on some people's toes. So here and there, in your kind of work, there are people you don't please.
And so they look for a way of bringing you down. So you think those are people who just wanted to bring you down that were saying this?
I think it's a long story that I think this kind of meeting will not permit me to
finish it.
To finish it. But it's a story about criminals at large that were involved in these kinds of allegations.
Criminals?
Because they even alleged the house was mine and Kimihurura. And I've never owned a house. None of my family members has ever owned a house. But they alleged the house that they were staying in was mine, and yet the owner is known. So it's these kinds of people.
From your legal background, criminals or alleged criminals belong to the courts. They have to go to the court, then they are tried, and if found guilty, they're taken to jail. So looking at this particular situation where you say these are just criminals, these are people who just came up with words, did you ever follow
the criminal-minded people?
Criminal-minded people. Did you follow due process and say, you know what, you guys have been accusing me of this, you've made serious allegations about me, let's meet in court?
No, I didn't file a civil suit, but some of them, I said again, I think it's a wrong time. It's as if I've come to defend myself, which wasn't the subject of my coming here. So, but I would say one word, is that some of the people did go to court, and some of them lost their cases. And some of them were fined by the prosecution services, others by the courts of law. So, but I don't want to go into
those details.
Those details. I think there will be another time for
that. Let's jump into now.
But I can confirm.
Yes.
Some of them did indeed go to court and they lost the cases, some of them. And others settled out of court.
Okay. So now let's talk of your period being Justice Minister in the country, and you were very vocal against those who are perpetrated as the enemies of Rwanda. In most cases, the Human Rights Watch. Most of the time when you are asked on interviews to give a comment about Human Rights Watch, you would always be very critical and you term them as just distractors, the enemies of the country, the enemies of Rwanda. Do you still hold the same thought today when you're out there?
I think even when I was Minister for Justice, I never called Human Rights Watch or anybody enemies of Rwanda. No, I would never say that. I would say that they're off the mark. I would criticize their method. I would criticize their report. I would criticize what's lacking in them. I would appreciate aspects of the reports that were accurate. Then I would be against aspects that were wrong. But I would never call them enemies. Then and now. I'll just say on this they are wrong. You see, an organization cannot be criminally responsible collectively, or social or whatever. Individuals within organizations can have their failings. Here on Radio Contact, you may have 1 or 2 guys that are not very smart. You're not going to condemn the whole contact radio and say that's a rundown radio, that's a terrible station, merely because Janvier or Jean-Paul or Christophe has done something wrong. So I think, on the whole, these human rights organizations have a modus operandi. They have a system in which they operate. So individuals within the system can abuse that modus operandi. But you can't say what they have done, all of it is wrong. So I would criticize then, and I would criticize even today, that's not correct, and go ahead with that's correct. That has always been my position.
It's a position up to date.
Yeah.
And then generally many people have always felt like everything they do is wrong. Everything they say is wrong.
That can't be correct. You can't say everything people do is wrong. I would never agree with that. I would say these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is wrong, and this is why. And I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4 is correct, and this is why. You see, there is always a silver lining to anything. There is always a good side and a bad side about most of the things. Sunshine is good for farmers, but it's also bad for farmers. Rain is good for farmers when it comes at the right time,
And it's also bad.
and so bad when it comes at the wrong time. So there is always the other side of the coin. So you have to look at both and then look at the overall objective. So it's wrong to condemn verbatim everything global. It's good to say in this report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is wrong. In this report 1, 2 or half point is right. Whatever, but recognize the little that is right and condemn the part that is wrong. Yes.
Now, for over close to 8 years, you've said, of experience, and I mean practical experience working on the job in the judicial sector. But then 2013, we hear in the news that you've been relieved of your duties as the Minister of Justice.
Yeah.
Take us through this process. I mean, what was it like? What do you think really happened? Was there any explanation given? Is there anything that today you can tell us, these are the reasons that were given as to why I was relieved of my job?
I said then, that was just a few days after the reshuffle. I think one radio station ran it for nearly a year, my statement. I think that was KFM radio. Ran what I said for almost a year as an introduction to their news bulletin. I said, the president has the power to appoint, and so it's not questionable. You don't ask for reasons, because when they appoint you, they have their reasons. When they disappoint you, they have their reason. This is a constitutional prerogative. You can't question it. You can't ask why. That's how it works everywhere. So the presidential prerogative to appoint, the presidential prerogative to disappoint, is a constitutional right. That's not questionable. So you don't assign any reasons, because then you go into speculation.
There was a lot of speculations.
So
too much speculations.
And I don't want to speculate. I don't want to be part of a speculating machinery. I want to say that the president appoints you for a reason. If he's thinking that you're not satisfying that reason, he disappoints you. That's it. And end of the story. Then life goes on. You continue with your business, other people continue their business. Life goes on, because this is not a hereditary position. See, to be a minister is a service, and you're appointed for a purpose. And as long as the appointing authority thinks you're not fitting to that purpose, it's their constitutional obligation, not right on, but to make a change. See, that's how it is. That's what governance is all about.
You had a lot of speculations, I'm sure, reached your ears. You heard on the radios or sometimes some media houses, and there are many who are saying probably your position on the term limit issue, these accusations. I mean, would you say anything?
That's what I've told you, that yes. I don't want to join the speculating machine.
But at least you can clear the air, maybe.
And say what?
And
tell me what to say.
Tell us whether it was true or not true.
That what?
That you are opposed to the term limit issue with the president president continuing on in office
How?
after 2017? You had a different opinion, or these allegations that were being raised of abuse of office, firing of 2 employees who claimed that were fired in an inappropriate way?
You raised that question. I told you, the minister cannot fire workers. This is really total ignorance. See, and that's the problem with some of our media. They work like scavengers, like
looking for something to talk about. Yes.
Talk about. They have no sense of responsibility in what they are writing. A minister cannot sack workers.
Can they have an influence on whether a worker stays or not?
I can even tell you exactly what happened. There was 2 workers, I think, or 3, that were involved in procurement. The finance part of our department in the ministry raised the issues with me, showed me there was something that was wrong. So we instituted an internal evaluation which showed there was something fundamentally wrong and fraudulent. Wrong and fraudulent. Went through it all. Today, if I died and resurrected, I would still find that there was something fraudulent, something criminal in it. Never mind what anybody else would think. Personally, when I look at it, there was something definitely fraudulent. And I had a responsibility. I was advised that there is no way you could give a market for, say, 6 million francs. That was the market, 6 million. And then without competition again, you make it 14 million. So, and the finance department says, we can't pay because there is no retendering. See, the tender was 6 million, about, and then they were paying them 14 million without a fresh tender of the internal tender committee. And so the finance department said, how can we pay? The Auditor General will crucify us. And so, briefly, that was the problem. And what was the company that won the tender? Its share capital was only 2 million. So how can a company whose share capital is 2 million win a tender of 6 million? And how old was the company? The company had just been formed for that market. So everything to me was fraudulent. Everything was clear to me. So, but that's when we set up the internal committee, that's what discovered. That's why some of the people involved agreed to pay Amand is fine.
Fines, yes.
Fines in the prosecution department without going to court. So we don't talk about, but they paid. Yes. And the prosecution didn't take them to court, but they pleaded guilty to that. Others didn't, they went through the court process. So this is what did I do as a minister? I said, these fellows are under investigation. So we wrote to the Minister of Public Service. These fellows are under investigation, but we don't appoint workers. So can you find them something to do while investigations are going on? That's not sacking.
So apart from that,
and the letter is there, and that's all the minister did. Afterwards, other people did their part, and the minister had no role at all. The letter that I wrote was written to the Minister of Public Service saying, these fellows are under interview, and the letter is there, it's official. And the investigations, the serious allegations, please take them to another place instead of the Minister of Justice because they can interfere with evidence. Take them while the investigations are going on. That's the only letter I wrote. So, so if anybody calls it sacking, that's serious. So
what of this issue of the term limits? Today that debate is back on the table. Where do you stand on this?
Did I talk about it?
No, I'm saying today that debate is there. There was no speculation that you are not.
Who was speculating?
I mean, it was all over the media, and some of the media houses that we have here. We even have the East African, which had also mentioned that there are so many speculations, including the claims that you are not pro the issue of changing of the constitution. I mean, it's important. It's important to clear the air on that, and maybe state your position on this debate today. Where do you stand in this debate?
That's a very interesting question. But first, let's go back first to basics. Whoever is quoting me as having that position, where are they getting it from? Whoever is speculating, Are they just looking at my face and say, this fellow's face looks like this, this fellow's ears or hair looks like, so where are they getting it from? Because I've not talked to anybody. I'd even refused to talk to you. So I didn't talk to any media. So where did they get it from? Other than speculation. So making these wild allegations. Why should anybody be reading my heart? Where are they getting it from? So you can't answer that. So are you part of the speculative machine yourself? Or
That's why you're here, because I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
So,
I don't like speculating.
Yes. In my kind of training, I got the basics. What does the law say? The law says A, B, C, D. Then I say, is the law a permanent feature in people's lives? Can any law be a permanent feature, whether a constitution or any law at all? No. So, the presidential term limits is always dependent on the law in force at the particular time. And so, we have a constitution. And the constitution is made by us, the Rwandans, the people. We have amended it 4 times since 2003. So there's nobody that can stop it, amending it a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, a 10th time if that is what the people want. So why should people be involved in speculation? You always go by the law as it is at any given
time.
At any given particular time. So if I say we'll go by the Constitution, it is as it is or as it will be at any given time, because it's not cast in stone. I've said we have amended it 4 times already. So why can't we amend it a 5th, a 6th, if that is what
the people want?
That's what the people want. So why should anybody be speculating about this other than
waiting
ignorance?
To see how things will be when that time comes?
Well, yes, exactly. That's so simple, so easy. Nobody should be speculating about it.
Okay.
If the people want if that's what they want, that's what they do. Then there will be a constitution, there will be a review. There's no country that doesn't review its constitution. And see, so why should anybody be speculating? It will be this. You just go by as it is at any given time. And it's not cast in stone.
That it has to be permanently the way it is.
Never.
Good.
I've never heard it anywhere. So why would anybody want to draw me into this kind of
debate?
Why? Because the review of any law is a permanent, continuous feature anywhere in the world.
Okay. So it will be very unfair if we finish the show without asking the main question of the day, and that is Ubu Barihe. So that is what we are doing this whole week. And the question to you is, Ubu Barihe, what are you doing? Where are you? What are you doing? Akazi kukora. Which job are you doing now after leaving the Ministry of Justice? Those who wish to connect with you again, where do they find you?
2 short things. First, that I'm not very, very young. I'm not very old, but I'm not very young. I started working on 1st July 1980. That's when I was appointed a state attorney in the Ministry of Justice in Kampala, Uganda. So I was a prosecuting attorney for quite some time in Kampala. I was a state attorney from July 1st, 1980. So some of the fellows that get into some of this speculation were probably not yet born. And so today there's that kind of gap. Since that time, I worked different with UNICEF, with the UNHCR, and I've not had a rest. So I would say, if you get in 1980 to now, you're talking of a period of 35 years.
Working and working.
Working and working and working. And so maybe there's time to rest. So I'm doing a little bit of resting.
Okay.
Presently, I'm doing a little bit of resting, picking my toes, picking my muscles, trying to put myself back into shape.
Yes.
To make it easier for me, I do farming. I go to look at cows, I go to look at some plants. and keep off the stress. Sort of relax a little bit. We say in French, il faut reculer pour mieux sauter.
Il faut reculer pour mieux sauter.
I think in English you would translate it as you have to step back in order to jump better.
Okay, so you've moved back.
So I move a bit back, I take in some breath, I prepare for the next jump.
So where do you want to jump to? Maybe that's the next question.
So I don't want to jump before I am ready. So let me do that little bit of rest.
Of resting.
Take a bit of breath. Reflect on what has happened in my life, have a little bit of relaxation, and then see what to do next. So in the meantime, keep with the cows, go to the farm, relax a bit. You know, cows are very interesting. They don't complain. They just see and make a little noise. So you walk a little bit, and that makes some bit of exercise as you keep around, as you quarrel with workers, you let off some steam. So that keeps you a little bit balanced.
Yeah.
Relax a little bit. So once that stress is off, I'll probably think of what to do
the next jump.
Yes.
So in conclusion, let's
but I have a telephone, like
yes.
you called me.
Yes, so and they can still get in touch with you.
The same telephone hasn't changed.
Okay.
So nobody can reach me.
So for these young people who are jumping into the legal field, what sort of advice would you give them with all your years of experience?
That many things. First of all, is that most of the things you learn in the university, in the school of law, are just tools that will help you, but they never make you a good lawyer. So a good lawyer comes about through experience. Because you first get the shock of your life. When you realize that what you studied in school is not the reality on the ground. You are told these people are like this, it's supposed to be this. When you reach there, you find totally different. You go to court, like my first frustration when I was a prosecuting attorney in Kampala. I would handle big cases, major cases, political, economic, and what. And always, it was easy to get on the hook the small fish. But the big fish were very difficult to get. To nail. And I always felt frustrated. Because they know their way around. Even when they do a crime, they know how to do it. They're smart. And they know how to move around the system. And so you always got potato roasters, wheelbarrow pushers, lifters. You always got them condemned and sentenced. But if you got big, the mega doers, they always slipped through your hand, and I always felt frustrated. And so that's not something you can learn in school. You learn it on the job. And you also learn that people are not as ethical as the law seems to tell you. So a lawyer is as bad and as good as anybody else. And they can be bad, they can be good, bad lawyers and good lawyers. They can be corrupt lawyers and they can be corrupt judges and corrupt prosecutors. So there can also be very good, very excellent ones. So these you learn them on the job. But the most important thing is do your job, be honest, do it right. Because even when people make allegations, if they are not true, they remain untrue. And the truth will always come out. There is no amount of lie. Whatever cement you put on it, that will become the truth. So a lie will always remain a lie. Those allegations I told you about, they're lies. So the minister sacked us. Never show me any letter sacking you. If you ask them where is the letter, they don't have it because it doesn't exist. If you show them, did you plead guilty to the prosecution service? They did. They say, yeah. So why did you plead guilty if you did nothing wrong? But they will make allegation, you sacked them. They will make allegation, you hired people you didn't. There is no minister that ever signs any contract. They don't sign, they don't make any payments. But what would you do if you are a minister or head of department, and your finance department told you there's something wrong here, we can't pay? Would you tell them go and pay? No, you say, go by the law. And the law says, if it's questionable, don't pay. So that's what you tell them.
Sure.
So then that's what happened. But the newspapers will write, some of your papers, they give them not 20 or 50, 10. They sell their soul for 5,000, for 10,000.
To write anything.
To write anything. So some of the guys, they just buy them 1 score or 2 scores and they write
anything.
So
but then
that's a crisis of your media here.
Sure.
That some of the people writing this.
But the problem is, we attended a certain press conference where the president was addressing the media, and the way and the tone he used when he was talking about you and what happened wasn't really that good. And so brings us to the question, are you still friends? Do you still talk? Would you?
Well, I mean, talking to the president is not an everyday occasion for anybody, even when I'm a cabinet minister. So, but I would guess I'm still a friend, because why should I offend him? No. But a president has a heavy responsibility. President is thinking about 11 million people. President is thinking every day, if you got 10,000 problems, he probably has 2 million problems sorted out. So one individual, one problem out of many is just part of the jigsaw that the president has to handle.
All right.
So I imagine personally that I would still be his friend.
Super. I think on that note is where we'll end the program today. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the stories you've shared with us. Thank you for the advice also. For those who are very keen, they'll definitely take it. And we definitely still wish you well. And I'm hoping that one day you have my number. You will invite me for some brochettes. Zihene. I love that. And Maginya Rwanda.
It will give you some gout.
Oh, so what do you advise?
Off meat.
Off meat. So what do we eat then?
Fish.
Fish. Do you have a fish pond? You have a fish pond? So fish. This weekend?
No, next prod.
Next weekend?
Yes. No, not this one. Another weekend.
It's a date. It's a date. Fine. It's official.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Honorable Tharcisse, for your time.
Right.
We thank you so much, and we wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There you have it. One-on-one comes to a particular end on that particular note. We thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your feedback. We've been receiving so much of that, and we still are interested in reading more from you. Use the hashtag 101RW. Let us know what you think about the program, and we'll still have those guests coming here on the show. As usual, my name is Eugene Anangwe. I can't wait for my fish. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very, very much.